Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Hi, guys. So, welcome to another Tipsy Tuesdays. I hope everyone is doing well today. I am so excited for what is to come. So, this is Arkia Higgs here, the Dream Coach, and today we are in for another treat. You can let me know in the chat if you are hearing me, making sure you're not getting any feedback or anything. Please let me know below in the chat. Please. All right. Hey guys, welcome. So while I wait to hear from someone in the chat, I want to just say good evening. I see Pastor Clark. Hi, Pastor Clark. It's so good to have you here. We're about to get started in a minute. You're hearing me well, Pastor Clark? You could let me know below if you're hearing me well. You're not getting any feedback because we're about to get into some juicy stuff and I need you guys to hear me. Yes. I see my guest in the chat loud and clear. Good. So welcome everybody. I am so excited for another Tipsy Tuesday. I am so excited to be back, committed to the cause, committed to what I believe in my heart God has called me to do. If you don't know who I am Arkia Higgs. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a physiotherapist, and I am the Dream Coach. And it is my mission to help you to bounce back, to thrive from I don't care what it is, all of life's roller coaster rides. We were born to thrive, and that's what we're going to be doing here on this community. I see my peeps in the chat, Gina, Tisha. Oh my gosh. It's so good to have you guys here. And while we are here, I want you to share this live, share it with your family, your friends, and tell them to come on because we are about to receive some very golden nuggets from my special guests and friends. Okay. So if you have not done already, please like and follow me. If you are listening on YouTube, subscribe, because I believe that God has this page here, not just for fancy words or to sound good or to look good, but I believe it's to transform someone's life. And that is what we are all about. Okay. So let me know below what are some of the things that you may want to hear on this live stream in terms of bouncing back. Like, what are some of the topics you may be interested in? Please let me know down below so that we can see how we can fill in those topics because it's about helping you. This is all about you. Okay. So today, our topic for today is talking about mind battles. And mind battles is something that I know that we can all relate to, even though we don't necessarily talk about it sometimes. We all struggle with mind battles at some point in our life. If that's you, let me know in the chat. I see Chanel. Hi, Chanel. Please let me know in the chat if even you could even tell me one of the things that you struggle with as it relates to being a female in particular. What are some of the things that you struggle with on a daily basis? Okay, because I want our guests to really help us in a way that will be beneficial to each and every one of us in our own special way. Eating, Des. Desiree says, eating. Welcome, Des. So I know for me, I just was thinking about this today. Like literally, I've been praying for years now to God for God to help me to stop eating the things that I know I should not be eating. Like every day, I struggle with going to Starbucks. I struggle with the cookies at Starbucks, and I keep saying, God help me. And guess what? Today I did not buy a coffee, but I did get a tea from Starbucks, and I did not get the cookie. So I believe that is a bit of progress. Time management. Oh Lord, help me. Time management. I totally agree. Mind battles are real. So my lady, we're going to get into it. And I do not have a formal bio for this lady. So that means that I'm just going to have to speak from my heart. Thankfully, This young lady is someone who I have known for almost 2 decades. Yeah, almost 2 decades, if not already 2 decades. I have known this young lady. She is truly a special gem who I love in a special way. She has a very special place in my heart. Sometimes she does not say much, but she has a lot wrapped up inside of her. She is one of those persons who would work silently, and then when you see what she has done, you're like, woo, what a masterpiece. She's very humble, but she is anointed. She is the wife of Mr. Jerron Spence, my brother in Jamaica. She is a Jamaican, and I actually met her here in the Bahamas almost 2 decades ago. I think we were about 14, 15. And even though she is still shy, I would say now, but God is working with her. She was even more shy then. And I think I was more of the aggressive friend, trying to push her to do different things, right? And then she kind of broke out a little bit, right? She broke out. And I just grew to love her. She is someone that I know that I can always call on anytime that I need something, especially during my transition of living in Jamaica. We schooled together, we were roommates. She is the first person who taught me that you don't know somebody until you live with them. She's the first person who taught me that. And we have lots of stories. We had many adventures together, but all of that, long story short, she is a wife, she is a mother, she is an entrepreneur, she is a minister of the gospel, she is an anointed vessel, and she is someone who I know had some degree of a challenge with mind battles, and I know that she overcame it. So I am very excited to hear what she has to share with us today. I am so excited to see whichever way that God will use it to help us, to help me, to help all of us. Okay? So I want you to please welcome my friend, my sister, Miss J.P. Spence. Just give us a minute to bring her up on the stream right now. We're going to bring her up. J.P. Spence is in the building. She's in the building.
Hi, Tia. How are you?
Me a good man. Me good,
You're
good
good.
friend.
You're chatting the patois.
Yes,
I
honey.
need
Say
all
it,
the
girl.
Bahamian
What's up?
there. How's my Bahamian dialect?
Let me say it. Go again. Go again for me. Go again.
Boy, I know, child. I know this Bahamian dialect, if I still got it or if I
You
ain't get
still,
it, I know.
you still got it. You still got it. You still got a little bit of it.
A little.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Miss JP Spence, I am so happy
Yes.
that you have decided to come and to speak with us. I know your life is very busy, so I really appreciate this. But before we even get started, right, I just want you to tell us a little bit about who is JP Spence, because I know you as Jody, but God has done some things in your life, right? So just tell us, who is JP Spence? Tell us something that we don't know about you. Not that not even me knows about you.
I don't know. Let me try. All right. So JP is really from my first name, the initials for my first and my middle name. So J is for Jody Ann, and P is for Patricia, which is my middle name. And I came up with this name, JP Spence, because I believe that the Lord had placed on my heart to be able to talk and share and just be real and open about certain situations and struggles and things that I've overcome and things that I'm still going through, just to share that on my social media platforms. And so I wanted a nice cute little name, so I thought about, hey, JP Spence sounds nice. So that's how JP Spence came about. So I'm on YouTube. I took a little break because I'm married for 3 years now. I have a 2-year-old son, and I am also 20 weeks pregnant. So I took a little break off from that, yes, just to focus on that before I go back to Let's Be Real. So that's something that a lot of persons don't know that I'm now expecting and carrying. And I am just excited in what the Lord is doing. In every season, there is something to learn from. There is something, it's not always a go, 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 go. Sometimes you feel like it always needs to be going at it. You always need to be at it. Something new and exciting and different needs to be happening in your life. But sometimes God just calls us to a quiet time, a still moment. And there's something to learn in that season. So I believe the Lord has me on a little pregnancy pause right now. And I am just, learning from it and see where the Lord takes me from there. Yeah. So that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that actually, I think, kind of takes us into what we're talking about today. We're talking about mind battles. Let's talk real talk, right? So, Miss Jody, on your show, you want to talk real talk, and I want you to be real with us here on today, right? So, you started to talk about the fact that sometimes we just want to be going, 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 going. So we have these certain expectations for ourselves as it relates to who we are and what it is we should be doing. And I know that sometimes I myself find myself struggling with that as it pertains to I felt like, I should always be doing this, doing that. And even as it relates to Tipsy Tuesdays, I said it on the show last week. I actually was off for about a year, almost a year. I didn't do Tipsy Tuesdays, but then I came back on again. And to be honest, I kind of felt like guilty about not being able to come on to Tipsy Tuesdays because I set this certain expectation for myself. I knew that this was something that God wanted me to do. And I think, I won't delve into the current thoughts that I had during this time period, but I want to take us to a time in your life where maybe you were facing some kind of challenge or mind battle, right? It was something that could either make or break you in the sense of what God's purpose was or is for your life. Take us to a point in time in your life where you experienced such challenges or mind battles.
Could pinpoint a few of them, of those situations in my life that could make or break me. Some of them definitely broke me down to pieces, to smithereens. And, some of them I was able to use those pieces and build myself back up, to who I am today, thankfully, by the mercies and grace of God. One such time I remember was in my years when I was in high school. I could never forget it. And these things make such an impression on your brain. So that's why sometimes how really impactful something is in your life. That's how you know the whole that something has on your life. That even after so many years, you can still remember what happened. You can still sometimes feel what you experienced during that time. And I remember it was a time where I was in about probably first form or second form of my high school, St. Andrew High School in Jamaica. And I was a little chubby back then. I could definitely say I had low self-esteem at the time. I didn't think too highly of myself. I thought I was just ordinary. And deep down, I somehow knew that God wanted more from me. God wanted me to expand and grow in different areas of leadership. But I just didn't see myself that way. And as simple as it is, it was a cheerleading tryout, and I wanted so bad to be a part, because it seemed as if the most influential of the crew, the most influential of my peers, the most, the peers that had it all together seemed to be a part of this crew. And I wanted to be a part of it so badly, and I couldn't because I wasn't able to do certain other moves, because you're fat and think I can't do the jumps, you can't do the cartwheels, you can't do all of that. And they tried to be nice about it, but I realized based on the listing that they put out, I didn't make the team. And I went to the far corner of the field, and I am bending down, stooping in the dirt, as I remember clearly, circling my fingers in the dirt. But I was really trying to hide the tears that were coming down from everyone else. And one or two persons saw and then decided to, just make me a part of being some animal, as a part of the whole cheerleading activities. So it wasn't something that allowed me to do a lot of cart kicks, but they still wanted somehow to feel a part. And when I looked on it, I realized, looking back at it, I really did not think, highly of myself. And a lot of us sometimes struggle with low self-esteem, not thinking highly of ourselves. And when you think about it, a person who doesn't have who has, low self-esteem cannot really enjoy, the quality of their life. They're not living life to the fullest. They're not living life to the best things that they want to try or things that they possibly want to do. They said, nah, maybe this is too big for me. Maybe this is too good for me. I will not, step out of the box. And, really, sometimes God is calling us out of our box. We have placed ourselves in a box and limiting ourselves from the potential that's really on the inside. And that's why there's a phrase that says the grave is one of the most richest places that you can find a lot of potential, wasted potential, people that did not maximize their potential. And I don't want to be one of that persons. So I had to, recognize, and I guess we'll talk about that later on, that low self-esteem was playing a serious stronghold in my life that I had to break. Constant feelings of self-criticism, it can lead to, you always feel sad, you always feel depressed, a lot of anxiety, anger, shame, and guilt, and all of those things play a part in low self-esteem. And I remember that particular thing, as I can go way back then, that I realized the low self-esteem really started. And because I didn't understand how to go and learn about what low self-esteem is, go and learn about what God says I am, who God says I am, that low self-esteem transferred and continued with me throughout life and the different stages of life, and affected the different situations in my life that I had to face. So when I looked at it, I remember a time where I had, my parents, they're still married on the document, but they have been living separated for quite some years. And I used to look at parents, children of parents that were still together, and it seemed as if they, experienced a certain level of love, a certain level of acceptance. It seemed as if their life, was together. And I felt down about my parents, living that life. Mind you, they didn't treat me, anyway. My mother encouraged me to still talk to my father, and my father, vice versa. They would not make their children separated from either parent. But looking on, you realized how much, them being separated had an effect on me, and, in doing some research, it's documented that, children that have, divorced parents, the parents separated, they're not grown up in that family structure, with the man and the woman together in a family home, in a unit, experience a lot of adjustment problems. They're not able to adjust in society, they're not able to adjust in school, they're not able to adjust in different areas of their life. So you find a lot of academic difficulties. I can definitely say that, I struggled with academics, Kia, and I'm going to go further into that. They struggle with, disruptive behaviors. You see them lashing out, getting, angry, intense anger, or sometimes you see them very shy, very quiet, total opposite, not talking, just immersing themselves in a box by themselves. And you see them going into substance abuse and, very depressed. And I realized that the low self-esteem, from that very young age continued with me. I continued to think low of myself. And, it went into even, when we came to school. Listen, cut me when you need to cut me, because I can share quite a few experiences. And financial challenges. My parents did the best they could. And I could say that sometimes I wasted some of the years of my schooling, low self-esteem. You're trying to fit in, you're trying to, be with the peers, do what your peers are doing. You're not focusing on your schoolwork, you're not focusing on your books, and you realize you're falling behind and your friends. Somehow it seems as if the friends that does the partying sometimes tend to progress. I don't know how, some of them, but I definitely wasn't one of them. And I found myself regressing, and the finances became a challenge because it was three of us. I started university, my brother was on the brink, my sister was on the brink of starting university, and I found myself no longer being able to live at one house, living from house to house with different people. And I have to say, on this platform, I'm so appreciative of those families that took me in, and really, if if it wasn't for them, I'm not too sure where I would have been. But I had to live with different families during my schooling. I started off living with you. We came down together, and then I had to move because of financial challenges to another family, and then I went to another family, and then I went to another family's house, and these people cared for me and they fed me. But even during that time, I was grateful for those experiences, but it made me feel a little angry that my situation wasn't better. It made me feel ashamed, that my peers had it together and I didn't have it together. It made me feel fearful. Am I going to continue in this downward spiral? It even brought a little tension, between me and you, Kia, because of it, and I didn't understand what was happening to me. And I think, that further contributed to my low self-esteem. And I want to bring it to my last point of that. The question you asked me about bringing back to a time in my life. I think this was one of the most impactful situations that had happened to me, that I can say my mind battles got the better of me and it broke me to smithereens. I remembered praying for, the one that the Lord should send my way. I said, Lord, let him be tall, let him be brown, and let him have the gift of playing piano. Miss Seki, if we can chat some patwa, God give me that. Plus taxing out and giving the exact thing. He gave me somebody who was tall, who was brown, and who could play the piano. I'm like, oh gosh, God, you answer my prayers like literally, like seriously. But sometimes what I realize is sometimes God puts within your heart what he already has in store for you. So sometimes you think you're praying and you're asking God for this, and God give you the exact thing, and you're like, oh God, you're so good. But sometimes God places the desire in your heart, that you're able to pray for it before you see it manifested. So this guy came along, and I'm telling you, he was playing, or not playing, I don't use the word play, he's not a player, but he was definitely, I could definitely see that he was the one. And I had a very close friend at the time, and we are still close now, thankfully to the mercies of God. And what happened was, in his phone, yes, I was one of them that went into the phones. Ladies, let's talk about, let's be real up in this place. We can't be talking about we trust the Lord, one, we trust women, two, but yet still we're doing things that show that we don't trust God and we don't trust our man. And I had the opportunity to look in his phone for something, and that close friend's name came up. Not name, sorry, my name. What was it? I think my name came up under her conversations. So I'm like, why is he trying to hide that he's talking to this person? Because he had that number saved as somebody else's name, something like that, of this, my sister-in-law, my now sister-in-law at the time. So I'm like, why is he doing this? Mind you, we were not married, we were not engaged. So you know what me do here with my stupid self? I went ahead and messaged that close friend of mine. I said, I realize I can't remember the exact words, but I realize you're talking with my man. Like, what's up? I tried to make it seem nice, like, but deep down in my heart, I said, what you're chatting to my man for? Is what you're trying to teach my man what's happening, what's happening. And I tell you, that spiraled into a whole thing. Thinking about it, it almost makes me want to bring me to tears. But, I've really come to a healing process where that is concerned. And I'm sure she is, grateful to God. And what he was doing was trying to arrange an engagement proposal for me. He was about to propose to me and was trying to get the people around me and my closest friends involved in the whole thing. And I tell you, I messed it up here. She recognized it, even though I tried to mask it with my very innocent question. She recognized it. My husband, well, my now husband, yeah, he did still propose. I was furious at the time, and I think even it was a whole thing. So for months, for years, this low self-esteem, not thinking highly of myself, not building my relationship with God, not trusting him, not trusting the people around me, because low self-esteem can cause you as well not to trust the people around you, because you think that, they're better than you, or you think that you're not as good as them. You think that, if I can be honest, I think that at that moment I thought that this individual had a better chance or was more ready, to go down that road than I was. And I felt like, oh, maybe my guy would leave me for somebody else. And that was the thought process in my mind. That was a battle in my mind that got the better of me, broke me down. I tell you, mashed up that friendship for that period of time, mashed up the relationship that I had with the guy for months. And it was a whole thing, but I can talk about it a little more in terms of the healing process that took place, because he's now my husband. That friend is now still my close friend by the grace of God, and a lot of things I learned during that process.
Wow, Jody. Wow. Wow. I am so grateful that I remember when you was going through that process. I am so grateful that it all worked out, because sometimes we could literally mess up, what God has in store for us. And Benjina said something in the chat. She said that looking at you, she would never imagine that, you would have been struggling with those things. And that brings the thought to mind that so many times that we as women, we are wearing masks. We try to look strong, we try to look well put together, but deep down inside, we are truly struggling inside. And that's why I believe that this topic is so important, because many of us are hiding. We are literally going through war in our minds and in our hearts. And we try to put on all of these costumes. We try to hide behind the makeup, the hairstyle, the clothes, even sometimes our behavior. Like you said, you try not to sound that way, but really and truly, you could not hide it. And sometimes I believe that these things are surfacing in our relationships. Sometimes it surfaces with dealing with our children, maybe even dealing with your colleagues at work. These things begin to surface, and that's why I believe it's so important for us to deal with it. And it's so important to get to the root cause of it. And you started to talk about, I believe what your root cause was, dealing with your parents. And I always believe that our childhood, it affects us as we grow older. The sad part is some of us never deal with it. Even though we may not necessarily be to the place where we want to be, we're not where we were. So we can see that we have made some progress along the way. But my concern for this, Jody, is persons out there who would have had some experiences as a child, or some traumatic experiences even into adulthood, that they have not dealt with. And we are wearing these masks, and some persons may not even be able to acknowledge the root cause of where these things came from. Because I believe that our environment, I believe that society, it affects the way that we live, right? And I was thinking about this a few days. Actually, let me speak the truth. Just on yesterday, I was you laughing at Jody. Just on yesterday, this month makes a year that I left my job where I was at for almost, I think it was 7 years. I worked at a private institution, and on yesterday, I was preparing to do some stuff for the new year, because I'm trying to end the year focused, not necessarily end the year strong, but end the year focused, so that I know where I'm going in 2023. And in the process of doing that, I had to reflect on some of the things that I came from, where I came from, and I had to look at some pay scales in terms of the rate that I was being paid, because of what I want to do moving forward. And as I was looking at it, I realized that I was being underpaid for the entire time that I was where I worked previously, right? And I said, hold on, let me investigate this thing a little bit deeper. And I started off as an assistant before I moved on to a physiotherapist. And when I became a physiotherapist, I realized that there was only literally a slight change in my pay rate. And I asked them about it, and they said, well, you know, when you started as an assistant, we started you at the highest rate. So that's why there was, you know, such a small change. And when I was doing my research, I realized that they were not even paying me at the lowest rate that I should have been coming in at as an entry level therapist. And I got like immediately, I got really, really hurt because I'm like, God, if only I had known. So sometimes we are struggling, and it brings me to this point that I struggle with feeling like I was not the best in terms of as a therapist. I thought that everybody else was better, everybody else was more skilled. So I never even researched, I never even knew that I was actually worth more. And as I was preparing for the end of the year, trying to get my mindset together, one of the things that I was studying was that we are valuable. Us as individuals, everyone on this chat here, we are valuable, not because of the skills we have, not because of our parents, not because of our associations, but just because we exist, just because we are children of God, we are valuable. And I was hurt because I'm like, you were belittling yourself for so long, not because you didn't know your worth, you did not know your value. And many of us are struggling because we do not know our worth, we do not know our value. And I realized that I spent almost 10 years at that job below below where I should have been, not knowing that I was worth so much more. And so that's why knowledge is power. That's why you have to surround yourself by positive people. If you don't have people in your life who are going somewhere, who are doing something, you need to surround yourself by positive people. Okay? So that brings me to the question of how can someone determine the root of their mind battles, because sometimes we try to deal with things without getting to the root of it. And like I said, society has affected us, whether it be our associations with family, friends, those things have affected us. But you being someone who has began this road to, you know, being stable mentally, you know, you're growing, you're able to help others now, how would you recommend someone get to the root cause of their mind battles, of why they are going through it?
In a vacuum. So if we're socialized a certain way, and we think that mind battles is a scientific thing, and it's just one way, we can't just look at it like that. If we've grown up in the church, we realize, we've been taught a certain way. Mind battles is something that's spiritual, and we only look at it that way. I think we are not to look at mind battles in a vacuum, but I think that there are different things that plays a role in our mind, and that makes a very, very valuable impression in our minds, starting from a very young age to even adulthood. So I think the first thing is not to look at mind battles in a vacuum, because there are certain things that are spiritual. It talks about our relationship with God and how the Lord speaks to us. For those of us who have a relationship with God, sometimes it says that the enemy speaks to us sometimes, and sometimes we even speak to ourselves. So sometimes it's all of these people playing a role in our struggles that we make, in terms of our thought process and in our thinking. So we have to open up our minds, open up our senses, based on what we have been experienced and what the scholars rather have said concerning mind battles. So if we do not look at it in a vacuum, and we're not open-minded, we realize that some things are spiritual. We realize that some things are really based on certain, where we're going through depression. We have certain diagnosis of certain mental issues, and mental issues is something that is has been swept under a rug for years, but is becoming more open and becoming more talked about these days. A lot of mental illnesses, and sometimes these things are spiritual, and sometimes these things are just physical. Sometimes they require medication, and it requires looking at it outside of a vacuum. So the first thing to overcome it is recognize what is the source of your mind battles that you're experiencing. I would also say, start by talking to the one that created your mind in the first place. God created you, He knows about you, He knows your past, your present, and your future. Start communicating to the one that created you and said, Lord, what is it, that I'm going through in this current state? What is it that you want me to learn? What is it that you want me to understand? What is it that you are teaching me? What are the negative self-talk and the negative self-influences that I'm allowing in my space? Which moves me to my next point in us overcoming mind battles is taking a stock of the influences that we feed our minds. Sometimes the influences are coming from, as we said, a very impressionable age, from our parents. It could be coming from our family experiences, the friends that we associate with. Sometimes, well, there's a saying that says, show me your friends and I tell you who you are. The friends that we associate with sometimes, can influence our mind, influence our habits, influence our behaviors, and then it becomes our way of life. And sometimes we wonder, how did I end up here? How did this become my way of life? But if you didn't realize, it started, by allowing these things in your mind. It started as a habit, and now it has become your way of life. Taking a stock of social media. OMG. I can't say that again. There's a thing called comparison syndrome. We compare ourselves a lot, especially as women. Men do it too. We compare ourselves to the next person, to the next, Jane Doe, next Tom, Dick, and Harry. That person is farther than I am right now, and I should be there, or I should be farther. We see the glitz and the glam on the social media. Sometimes I go to my husband and I say, oh, they're like, there's a video of a husband and he's rubbing the feet of his wife and he's pampering, and he's like, there, that's social media. Because whilst it can be true, and my husband can take a nice time, so trying to caress me or make me feel comfortable in my own life. Sometimes a lot of these things that are put out in social media are just a facade. Sometimes their marriages are under wreck, but yet they're posting that they're traveling to different countries every week. They're posting that everything is great in their marriage, but yet a lot of times that they are struggling. So I think we need to look at mind battles in a holistic approach. Look at it from that not everything is physical, not everything is spiritual, it's not just in a vacuum. It's different things that influences our minds. Develop that relationship with the one that created your mind and what he says about you and who you are, and take a stock of the things that we are allowing to influence our mind. We need to go through a period now where we need to start weeding out the different things that are having a negative influence on our minds. There was one time I went through a phase of just deleting some of these social media things from off my phone. When I look at it, I spend 20-30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours just looking at pictures, scrolling through videos, putting myself in those people's shoes, wishing my life was like them, rather than taking the time to build my relationship with God, or taking the time to build myself, or taking the time to learn about myself and learn about who I am and where God calls me to be. So I'm looking at the achievements of others rather than trying to build up the achievements of my own self. Listen, the only thing that we need to be comparing ourselves with is who we were yesterday or who we were 10 years ago. And I learned that at a very late stage in life, but I'm so glad I still learned it, because now it has allowed me to look, there's this picture that I saw recently. You see an old man drowning, a lady drowning, and a child drowning. And you see a man on a rock, which presumably is the husband of that lady and the father of that child and the son of that old man. And what you see that man doing on top of that rock is reaching for the old man. And when you look at the whole meaning of that painting that was created, it says that the wife represents our present state, or the child represents the future, and the old man represents our past. So that man is trying to save from all those people that were drowning, his past. We tend to hold on to our past. We hold on to the trauma. We hold on to the guilt. We hold on to the shame rather than getting into a process of healing and using them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, to let the devil know that, listen, you had your time, you had your chance. I've learned from this, I've healed from this. I'm not ashamed of this anymore. I'm going to testify, I'm going to share my experiences and help someone not live in my past, hold on to my present, and reach forward to my future. And those are some of the things that I think can help us with mind battles in a nutshell.
So Gina say, so you want to preach? You want to preach? I see. Go right ahead. OMG. Girl. Woo. Let me take that in for a minute. Listen,
Yes,
JB,
yes.
you see, the
I'm
thing about
telling
it
you,
is, when you go through stuff, it is nothing like after you've gone through it, it's like it changes your whole perspective of how you now view life, of how you now view people, that you realize that certain things just ain't worth it. It's not worth it anymore. Especially as you begin to, I don't know if it's something about growing older, like you are so careful of what you
sure.
put your energy into, because your energy is so valuable, you know, when you're not as young as you used to be. So your whole life and perspective changes. But OMG, that scenario with the man taking his father, because I realize that even though sometimes persons like yourself, like me, even persons who are in the chat, um sometimes we know all the right things that we should be doing. We know it, but yet sometimes we're still struggling. We are still struggling. So this is such an important reminder of to how we need to be aware. And I would say now, JP, like looking back at yourself, like if you could look at your 20-year-old self, after all that you've been through, after what you know now, like what would you tell her to do differently?
Yeah, just before I answer that question, and I also wanted to comment or validate the whole point I made that we can't look at mind battles in a vacuum and not just look at things spiritual or just look at things physical. Sometimes some of these mental illnesses or mental challenges are properly scientifically diagnosed situations that sometimes it just needs, it needs some medication, it just needs some good acquaintances and friends around you, or it could need some good prayer and fasting and counseling. So I would say start by seeking the face of God concerning it. Because sometimes God calls psychologists, he calls psychiatrists, and he has gifted them the gifts, to be able to help us. But because we think everything is so spiritual, we don't even go to them and get the necessary tools that the Lord would have downloaded, in their lives, or the schooling that the Lord would have taken them to help you. And we're stuck in a state for years. So that's why I have to validate the point that not everything, is spiritual. I definitely say start there though. Start by praying, start by fasting, and let the Lord show you where you ought to go. If I was to look at my 20-year-old self, I'm now 30, no, I will be 34 in a few
Um,
weeks, right? So that's 14 years ago. That would have been 2008, I believe. That's when Key and I, we just got our acceptance letter to UE, and we were off to Jamaica to further our tertiary studies. And looking back at 2008 up until now and all the different things that I've gone through, I would definitely say, girl, focus on your relationship with God. Just get deeper with God, understand his heart. Understand his heart. We read the scripture and we pray and we worship, but sometimes God is just looking for somebody who can understand his heart. And I would definitely say focus on your relationship with God. I would definitely also say learn about you and who you are. A lot of my life and the things that I liked and the things that I love, what I realized, there were a lot of the things that my friends loved or my friends liked. I didn't spend enough time to find out who is Jody. What does Jody like doing? What does Jody like watching? What does Jody like eating? What does Jody like and doing for fun? And I spend, a lot of years looking at other people's lives and living my life through other people's lens rather than learning about who I am and what it is that I'm about, coming into maturity. And a lot of that happens with growth. I could definitely say growth and maturity plays a role in that. The more you grow older and the more that you have experienced certain things, is the more you realize that you just need to take a stock of your life and learn about you and who you are. But if I could have done that earlier, girl, I would have definitely done that earlier. Another thing I would say, I would, develop those things, the giftings and the callings that God has placed within my life, whether it's a call to speak, whether it's a call for events management, whether it's a call to create a YouTube channel, whether it's a call to designing. Find out what are those things and develop them. Spend time, go and pay for a course, learn how to braid hair, learn how to do nails if I like that, learn how to cook. You want to get married, learn how to take care of the home. You learn how to manage your expenses. If you need to take a one course or something, look at developing yourself before you go into certain things in life that you want to achieve. I would also say to myself, develop the relationships that are important to you. I could have spent more time engaging with my parents. I could have spent more time engaging with my siblings, my brother, my sister. Oh my God, it's making me teary. I could have spent more time with my close friends, developing my relationships with them, talking with them, us going out, us chilling, praying for them, because sometimes we think developing our relationships is just those things. It could be praying for them, it could be fasting for them, going down on the face of the Lord. That's how somebody really close to you, when you can spend the time praying for them and fasting for them. I would spend more time developing the close relationships around me. And those are some of the things I would have told my 20-year-old self, and just say, stop worrying, stop with the anxiety, stop stressing. The Lord has your life worked out. Just continue to seek Him, and as time goes, He will reveal His plans to you little by little. Don't worry about it.
Girl, I feel like I want to cry.
Hi. Girl, I crying on the inside right now. My God, God is good. When I think about where the Lord has taken me from, to even have this boldness to be able to speak on a platform like Facebook, and I know millions of people are gonna see and hear my story and my different struggles, just to have that. I know that it couldn't be of myself. It must have been some form of transformation. It must have been God. And it must have been because somebody close to me was praying for me. And it must have been because I took my life serious and decided to focus on things that were important, like learning about God and what He says about me. You
Jody,
can be more than who you are right now.
oh God, everything you're saying is just, I don't know if you even realize it, but basically you're talking about knowing your identity.
Mm,
You
yeah.
you know who you are. And
Yes, girl. Yes. Identity.
all right, this
My
real talk, right? And I we're talking real talk, right?
Holy Ghost,
But
help us.
sometimes we struggling, right? Because we're trying to put on the identity of, sometimes, like you say, your friends. And if it was one thing that you could do and you could go back, was just be you,
I'm telling you.
embrace you. And that's the message to everyone listening here. You don't have to be nobody else. You do not have to be anybody else. Sometimes, and that's what I was trying to be over the years. And even as I tried to put this platform together, I was trying to look at other people and see what other people have. When God is saying, no, that ain't for you. So what is the thing? What is the thing that God is calling you to do? Who does He want you to be in the earth? He wants you to possess the land. And I had my devotional here with me on the side of me. I don't know why. Something just somebody say, put the devotional on the side of me. right? And I want to read certain portions of this devotional that I had today. It says, it reads from Galatians 3 and 3, and it says, "Are you so foolish? After beginning with the Spirit, are you now trying to attain your goal by human effort?" It says that this passage reminds us that it is foolish to try to thrive by human effort alone. Foolish doesn't necessarily mean evil, but it can also mean being unwise. So, like, that's why I was saying sometimes we know better, but we're not always doing better. We know the things. We've been taught these things in church. And that's why you said, yeah, it ain't even always about being spiritual. Because could I tell you, Jody, many days I get up and I know what I should be doing.
Yeah.
But I don't do it. How many of us out there, for years, you know what you should be doing, but you don't do it? But my thing about all of this is that the mind battles, right? The toxic thoughts, the longer that you stay in that state is the longer that you will stop from moving forward. Sad to say, for some of us, it took years, but it doesn't matter now. Today is a new day. And like you said, we just need to be better than the person we were yesterday. So let's put aside the comparison. Let's stop, like Desiree said, let's stop self-sabotaging ourselves. Let's do the things that we know God has called us to do in spite of the many thoughts that come into our minds, in spite of how we feel. And how can we do this? Jody, could you tell me how, right? Like you said, it doesn't have to necessarily always be spiritual. What are some practical ways or spiritual that we can deal with these things? I think you freeze on my end, Jody. Are you still there? One second, guys. I think we lost Jody. Okay. I think we lost Jody, guys. One second. All right, guys. So as we wait to see if we can get her to come back, it seems like she's having some technical issues. But I was going to ask her the question of how do we deal with these things? Like, what are some practical ways that we could deal with it? And she will not be able to come back. So I'm going to end this. God does all things well, guys. He does all things well. So I just want to say, before I even continue, thank you to our special guest for coming on. Please share this video. And she started to talk about mental health. And if you were not here, week before last, we had a special guest nurse, Renisha Sweeting, and she talked all about mental health. And it's something that we now need to start addressing more. So please, if you didn't hear that episode, go back on the Dream Starter page. It is right there on the page. You can listen to that when you have some time. Desiree says, how do we deal with these things? What are some practical ways that we can deal with this? She says self-affirmations. I agree. Affirming yourselves. I believe in the power of words, not just thinking it. Thinking it is one thing, but I believe we ought to speak it, because when we begin to speak it, we could shift things in the atmosphere. I believe that one of the things that the enemy does is he tries to keep our mouths closed. He don't want us to speak. And that's why I say sometimes we know the things that we should be doing, we're not necessarily doing it. I love it. They're saying it in the chat. Meditation, being around people that empower you, Benjina. I agree. Having the right people around you could take you to your destiny, or it can take you away from your destiny. Another thing that I do also to help me is listening to music. And sometimes I listen to music, just sometimes just the instrumental, because sometimes we're hearing so much words, sometimes over and over we're hearing all these words. Sometimes you just need to flow all of that out, like Jody said. Sometimes walk away from the social media, turn off your phones, and just be with you. Some of us are not comfortable being with ourselves. Some of us are not comfortable with embracing the reality of what it is we may be feeling. But that is why we have the Savior. That is why He is there. He wants us to cast our cares upon Him, because He said His yoke is easy and His burden is light. And many of us have been carrying burdens that we were not designed to carry. We were not designed to carry these burdens, but yet we have been doing it. And we still have more advice coming in. Journaling. I love that, journaling. I have to work on that one. I try to. I don't like to write, but I try to, because I realize that it's important sometimes to offload everything that's in your mind, the things that you would have experienced throughout the day. It's very good to get that on a piece of paper. It's not just thinking about it, but actually writing it down can be very therapeutic. Singing. Instrumentals allows me to connect with myself, Benjina. Learn to enjoy your own company sometimes. I see Jody in the chat. Go ahead, JP. You could let us know in the chat what are some of the practical ways. She's saying it. Go do the things that you love. I agree. And in order to do the things that you love, you have to know who you are. You have to know what you like. Like me, I know I love Starbucks, a white chocolate mocha with some toffee nut and oat milk. That, for me, that is a treat. And to go sit by the beach or to go sit in a garden, that is me. I love to do that. So what do you love to do? And the only way you can know that is if you take time to get to know yourself. Okay, so again, I want to say thank you. You guys can continue talking in the chat. Thank you. Today was truly for me. And I know God is doing something in me. I believe He is preparing all of us for something greater. I believe that greater is coming. And in order for us to walk in this and to do this thing right, He has to prepare us. And that's what He's doing. Benjina says sometimes you just got to stop being cheap. Invest in you. You deserve it. Spend on yourself. Doesn't have to be a lot. I agree. Especially parents. I definitely agree. Block out negative influences. JP Spence. Yes. I love this. So if you didn't know how you can deal with the mind battles that you are facing, take a look right in the chat. I'm sure there's probably about more than 8 ways in the chat that we could begin to fight this mind battles. And one last thing I would say is be there for somebody, because I believe some of us are in this race and some of us are a little bit ahead. We're a little bit further along than somebody else. So before you look at someone and just judge them and say, maybe, they having a bad day, I can't bother, I don't want to deal with them, take some time to just reach out, ask a question. So many people, I keep saying it, so many people are suffering in silence. But time out for that. We are God's hands. We are His feet. Be the help to somebody. We should be helping someone while someone is helping us. We shouldn't just be receiving, and we're not pouring anything out. God called each and every one of us to reach somebody. My good auntie Kira, she says, do some of the things you were procrastinating about. Woo! That's me. That's me. Could I tell you? I was procrastinating about Tipsy Tuesday for a year. For a year, I have been procrastinating. And I am still procrastinating on some other stuff. But can I tell you, I'm going to get there. I am going to keep moving forward. And I encourage you to do the same because you are worthy. You are worthy because you are a child of the King. And if you are not a child of the King, the invitation is open to you to become a child of the King. You have his DNA running in your veins. There is nothing that you cannot do. And what I realize about procrastination, you have to just do it. Just do it. You do not have to have all your ducks here in a row. I remember the first day that I came back to Tipsy Tuesday. First of all, I had to pick up my daughter from after school classes. When I got home, it was time for me to go. And I had on my scrubs. I put on a little bit of lipstick and I came and I sat in the front of this camera in my scrubs because I realized that this Tipsy Tuesday is not about me. It's about you. It's about God getting honor and glory out of your life and out of someone else's life. And that's why I encourage you to share this because we don't need to keep this information to ourselves. There are too many people out there who are suffering in silence and they need this. They need to hear this because we are all going up together. We are going up together. So, guys, I'm going to stop because trust me, when I tell you I feel something, I feel it. And pray for me as I pray for you that Tipsy Tuesday will go where God wants it to go. Not where I want it to go, not where anybody else wants it to go. I believe that if this show is for one person, God will get the glory from it. I really, truly believe that. And if you have to come back, this thing is here on Facebook. Come back, listen to it, take notes. And let me tell you something. Information without application is procrastination. Information without application is procrastination. Arkia Hicks. That's my quote. Put my name next to that. We can't just keep taking, and we're not doing anything with it. You have to apply it. It's time to move forward. So what is that thing? I'm leaving this question with you. What is that thing that you have been procrastinating about? What is it? All of y'all, I could get in my Bahamian dialect right now. All of y'all who on right now, right? Y'all on here right now, and y'all know y'all been procrastinating about some stuff. Please message me and tell me when y'all and start doing it, at least before next week. I need to know what y'all doing. I need to know what y'all are doing. Okay? We ain't gonna be coming here every Tuesday and we ain't doing nothing. We about to do something. We about to make some progress. We about to have some testimonies on this show about the things that we are doing. Okay? So y'all, I can stop because I feel like stopping, but I gonna stop. Okay? So this is Arkia Higgs here. Today I had the lovely JP Spence. You could follow her on YouTube. I'm the Dream Coach. I will be here every Tuesday as long as God bids. I will be here, but please share this with somebody. Share the love, okay? I love you guys. I appreciate everyone in the chat. My peoples are in the chat. I love y'all, each and every one of y'all. And thank you for joining me today. Have a great, great day. Love y'all, love y'all, love y'all.